I was a detective sergeant at Boscombe Police Station, which is in Bournemouth. Our detective inspector showed me a telex. The fire brigade had found the head of a woman in one room and her body in another. We drove off rapidly with a car full of detectives to the scene. When we arrived, there was already a police cordon, and of course, in common with practice, we couldn't enter the scene because it is a crime scene, and the more people you get treading over a crime scene, the more likely you are to get forensic evidence damaged or destroyed. I was compiling the file of evidence in this case, and the placing of the head in bed was a clear, deliberate act to cause terrible upset to the daughter. It was a wicked crime, sadistically carried out. Decapitation of an individual in this manner was at that particular time almost unheard of in this country. This is not a decapitation to kill, for example, medieval executions where the executioner has an axe to take a head off. This is a decapitation to disfigure. It therefore sinks to an evil level.
But Lee Baker wasn't finished, not for one moment. His murderous killing spree was about to take a new turn. This time, he turned his dark attention on Caroline's best friend.
She was instrumental in trying to turn Caroline against him, away from the relationship that she saw was not safe. And so he deliberately targeted her again as revenge.
Lee Baker stabs her repeatedly. That same rage, that same fury that he's exercised against Alida Good, he now transfers to Helen Longhurst. Stab after stab after stab, and she drops to her doorstep, lying there in a pool of blood.
She was the person he blames for Caroline leaving him. The idea that she must have cajoled her into doing it. And this is typical of the very kind of controlling psychopathic character who will produce a relationship and maintain it out of fear, aggression, violence, rather than love and care and attention. He subsequently admitted that he wanted Helen to die.
Miraculously, she survived. Not one vital organ was hit by the knife. She was such a lucky lady.
Up to this point, Baker's attacks had been specifically targeted at those closest to Caroline. But leaving Helen for dead, he embarked on a more frenzied and random killing spree around the streets of Southbourne. Lee Baker was demonstrating what is now called a psychotic break. He literally exploded like a volcano. The rage and fury that he felt at the loss of Caroline Good was expressing itself in the most violent, aggressive, and in the end, monstrous manner.
There are three categories of these sort of murderers. There's the serial killer, with the cooling off period in between events. There's a mass murderer that kills everybody in one hit, if you will. And there's a spree killer. There's somebody like Ryan, who went around Hungerford firing his rifle over a period of time, over an afternoon, shooting and pottering away. What we've got with Baker is basically a spree killer on the loose.
In Lee's mind, he clearly had lost complete control. He was going to take everyone with him and possibly at the end either commit suicide or be shot by the police.
Baker's weapon of choice had been a lethal commando-style knife, but now, growing in confidence and casting himself in the role of a sadistic action hero, he armed himself with a crossbow.
So he was feeding this kind of strange, decapitating war hero type image that he had of himself with his crossbow and his big Gurkha knife. He was somebody who was always had been probably a threat and a danger to others, but now was on the streets actually bringing that to fulfillment.
he encounters a former oil worker called Clive Rattu, who's 53 years old. He's minding his own business. He's simply walking down the street. For no reason, for absolutely no reason whatever, Lee Baker shoots Rattu with a crossbow.
Lee Baker shot him in the back with a crossbow. He turned around and Lee Baker says that Mr. Rattu said, "Why did you do that?" To which Lee Baker then stabbed him straight in the chest. The knife, which was a Sykes Fairbairn Commando fighting knife, went straight through his heart, in one end out the other. And then he just pulled the knife out and walked away, leaving Mr. Rattu with this injury. Didn't sort of even finish him off, just stabbed him the once and walked away.
It is one of the most horrific killings that it's possible to imagine. He had done nothing whatever to deserve the killing. He didn't know Lee Baker, but by now, Lee Baker and his explosive temper was in full flood. As far as Lee Baker was concerned, anyone was fair game.
We found the body of Mr. Rattu. His chest was soaked in blood, and he was lying in the driveway of a house. He was quite white, and clearly a lot of blood had gone from him, and we could follow a trail of blood to the house next door. So from wherever he'd been stabbed, he'd actually gone up the driveway of a house, knocked on the door, there was no reply. He came down the drive and he was going up the drive of another house when he collapsed and died there and then.
What on earth must the poor householder have thought as he or she opened the door to discover a man with a crossbow bolt in him?
Clive Rattu had obviously tried to seek help from a number of houses along Iford Lane, and I could see there were spots of blood everywhere, leading from one house to the next house. And at this final house, when I arrived there, all I could see was his fingerprints on the front door, and they'd been dragged down. And it was like a horror movie, really. And there he was, innocent man. Well, I'll never forget the look on his face, because I still remember that. I still remember to this day when I passed the house that I found him and where his last resting place as such. And even now, as a total mark of respect to him, I always nod, bow my head.
The cold-blooded killing of Clive Rattu is a demonstration of the purposelessness, the lack of any kind of rationale for killing people other than sadism and self-aggrandizement. He was just trying to act out a part of the most violent, oppressive, horrible person who everyone should fear and everyone should look up to. He had a bizarre vision of himself.
Baker was now the most lethal kind of killer. Not a fictional character on the big screen, but someone armed and dangerous, killing at random on the ordinary seaside suburban streets of Bournemouth. And his reign of terror wasn't over yet.